Greetings out there, this is Culture Shock, the show where we delve into why we are the way we are and why we do the things we do, particularly regarding change and evolution in our personal selves and our environment around us. For this episode, we're talking about culture shock in the truest sense of the phrase, travel. There's a big world out there, but many of us are stuck in our comfort zones. We never see the world around us. So I have invited two very dear friends who spend possibly as much time in the sky as they do on solid ground. I have Adefope.
Yes, hello.
And Funlola Adefope.
Hello.
Welcome to Culture Shock. Did you guys land in country just for this? As in, are you in transit basically as you're here right now?
Yes, I am.
I like the way he's joking, but I have been here for 2 days.
Oh, you've been here for 2
proud of
days?
myself.
That is the longest you've been on the ground in a long time.
Very funny.
No, well, when I mean like, you're both Nigerian though. Let's
Yes,
get that
yes,
okay.
Nigerians.
Yes, but then you
Despite
just...
what they think at the immigration stand at the airport. They keep
Why?
thinking I'm Kenyan. For some
Oh, me
reason.
too. They're like, welcome, my Kenyan sister. I'm like, I'm
What is it about me that makes
Nigerian.
you think that I'm Kenyan?
I don't know. I'm like, I'm from this country. Like, I had to show one lady my passport because she didn't believe
introduced
me.
myself in a very Yoruba accent as well. Until they're like, oh, look for me. And I'm like, yes.
And then she didn't say anything. I'm like, so you're not going to welcome me, your Nigerian sister?
Aren't you happy that we're back?
Do you know? She's like,
you're not
I'm from
interested,
Nigeria
like,
now.
oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay, so where are you transiting from?
I've just landed from Accra,
Okay.
straight to this show.
So so it's right if I say Akwaba, like okay,
Yes,
so
yes,
Akwaba, yeah. And then so where to next?
No, I'm here for a couple of weeks.
For a
and
couple
then
of-
I'm going to
The
Cotonou.
country then. You're going to Cotonou. Are you flying?
No, we're going by road to
Do
experience.
people actually
the
fly to Cotonou?
No, it's not worth. You can, but
You
it's
can,
not
but-
worth. You can go by helicopter.
It's not worth it, especially if you aren't used to traveling by road and you're not used to dealing with the border police. So if people are going on business, they tend to fly and then come back the same day. But if people are actually going to experience Cotonou, they
You should drive.
Yeah,
it's-
Take it. I mean,
it's a
taking
scenic
like,
drive.
It's
even
really
even
nice.
through Nigeria, going there.
Yeah.
It's really nice. The semi-border is quite. I mean, they've done some work in terms of making it easy. They're not where
a
they
lot
need to.
smoother.
Yes, it's a lot.
Yeah, but
smoother.
at least so progress.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's some progress.
Okay.
Yes.
So how long is a flight from Lagos to Cotonou?
30
it's
minutes.
shorter than getting to Abuja. Actually.
like 30 minutes.
Yeah, less
It's
than
like
an hour.
30 minutes. Okay. So,
It's just
so
the
that's why
fact
you say
around the
that.
airport.
So for me, it's almost. I mean, yes, exactly. It's like you have to go to the airport and then board, and I might as well be experiencing the scenery. Because road travel is something that's beautiful that I don't think we do enough of in West Africa.
In West Africa. Okay. So like, what's the furthest you've traveled by road from like Lagos?
I've gone to Ghana by road,
Okay.
and I really enjoyed. This was a long time ago, but it was nice to go from Lagos to Cotonou to Togo and then to Ghana and then came
Say
back
hi,
by road.
neighbors.
Yeah, and it was nice because you could just tell the difference as you were going along.
Because attitudes change,
Yeah.
accents change, even the things that you're eating change slightly. It's all recognizable, rice and stew and meat and so on and so forth. But the different flavors and the way in which they serve it is very, very different. And it's nice.
Okay. And I mean, but we all look alike, kind of. But then
But that's what makes it beautiful, and that way everyone, you know that everyone here is mostly West African, but you then experience the different things that make them who they are. And I think that slow travel is something we should consider.
Slow travel?
Yeah, it's just traveling slowly,
Oh,
not
okay.
always flying, dashing in and out of planes. That's
I
something to
see.
think
You'll
about.
take your time. So yeah,
Yeah.
okay. But I know one of the things that worries people the most. I mean, myself included, is the cost of getting around. Actually, like maybe we should just like backtrack.
Yeah.
So, and then you let us know why it is that I'm asking you guys for all this information, because not just are you guys experienced travelers, you're actually travel professionals, or
That's
let's say
true.
tourism, or what is it?
Tourism,
Like,
and travel and tourism.
Exactly.
Passionate
So,
about the tourism industry.
Yes.
what do you do
I
for
work
that
and run.
paycheck? You walk and run.
I work and run.
Okay, I thought it was like an accent
And
difference. Travel.
there
I
was- there was
walk
a
and I
follow-on.
run.
And ride.
Okay, sorry.
And ride. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
A corporate travel agency. So I work in corporate travel. So we negotiate on behalf of airlines and we manage, large corporate clients. We do pretty much everything that they need, including their leisure travel, but I'm also very, very passionate about domestic tourism.
Okay.
I travel around Africa, to be fair. Yeah.
That's right. It kind of is
You know,
domestic. I mean,
it
like
is.
one Africa, right? That's what we're pushing, right?
That's what we're heading towards, but it's getting a little bit more trickier as the conversation
Are
goes
you
on.
sure it's just getting? Hasn't it always been?
Well, when politics gets involved, everything gets a bit tricky.
Life is politics.
This is true.
what they say.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
they say.
yeah.
And Adu, you are?
I run a tourism advisory practice, and we
Okay.
work in looking at how we can advise businesses, governments, and other organizations on their destination development, destination management, and tourism development strategy. But like Funlola said, I'm also very focused on West Africa, the sub-region, and on looking at how we can promote domestic tourism or regional tourism, you know, on the continent.
Okay, so when you say original tourism, like
No, regional.
oh, regional. Okay,
regional,
okay.
sorry.
You see,
Yeah.
that was an accent from one of your trips.
It's my Ghanaian, it's like my Ghanaian accent. I actually found myself by yesterday saying 13, you know, I want to go there. And I was going, it's happening. You've done Monrovia, right?
Yes, but everything assimilates as well.
Actually, why you just
realize when you're doing it, you're picking
Going to
up
the
the accents
I'm going to the
around you.
airport, Bibi
Yeah.
Bird. I'm like, what?
Bibi, who was
Bibi
that?
Bird, because that's why they don't call it the
how
plane.
they
That's how
talk,
they call
exactly.
the plane. Bibi Bird. It's a big
Like
bird.
a big bird.
Exactly.
Oh wow, but
You find
it
yourself
is though.
repeating that as well. You're just like,
It's like, what am I?
Yeah, because I think it makes sense. Because
It's a big.
and
It's a big
no,
bird.
but what I mean is, you know, assimilating when you're there because then it's easier for them to understand. You,
Yeah.
But there's that thin line between thinking that's what it is and then or thinking it's mockery.
yeah, but then
Like-
I also think with genuine interactions, and I like calling them collisions, you are able to collide with a lot.
So that's
literally
like
running
travel
into each
insurance,
other.
like-
Please.
Okay,
don't
I know. Just checking. I know it's a collision.
Because I
like-
don't think I have updated my travel insurance, so somebody in my office would be freaking out right now.
Oh wow.
No, but I call them collisions because in Africa it's so much easier to just bump into people and strike up a friendship or strike up a conversation in that moment than it is in a lot of other places around the world. And especially in West Africa, people are very welcoming, and it's something that's a shared culture
Yes.
that goes all the way across the scope. They're feeders. We like feeding each other.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We like showing each other all of our favorite things. So when she said regional traveling, you thought it was original travel. I
Yeah.
actually thought that was a fantastic title and something that was very nicely put
My
together.
agents shall be talking to you, like to make sure I get my
Card,
business
trademarked
card.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that actually.
Yeah, I like the whole
that.
idea of original travel
This
because
is
it's not
what we
necessarily.
do.
Thank you.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like developed tourism and clear-cut tourist routes like there are everywhere else in the world. Here, it's literally moments of discovery as you go along and
Yeah.
people that you meet showing you additional things. So yeah,
And I think that's part of the.
original travel.
I think that's part of the adventure. It's
Yeah.
just that you go and you just wander and find
So
different
discovery,
things.
right?
And,
Like
yeah.
you stumble into a good
and,
time.
and I actually think that's where we should focus our tourism industry in terms of saying that we need to start saying we should look at adventure tourism. So whoever is open and up to experience, yes, remember that. Whoever is open and up to experience something new,
Yeah.
Africa has something for you because you just never know
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
But-
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean,
No, just because I like that idea. You know, like you say, like so adventure tourism.
Yeah.
Yes.
But so the quintessential or lack of the everyday African life, like waking up to a lot of people, that in itself is just an adventure on its own. Like trying to navigate through the day.
Life.
just trying to survive.
Just
the whole adventure.
so.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to romanticize it and put rose
Yes,
tints on
of
it
course, yeah.
and say, oh yes, we're doing the whole backpack around Africa thing. Please, there are mosquitoes, there's yellow fever, there are all sorts of mishaps that may occur along the way, but those things may occur along the way
Anyway.
everywhere else you travel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you just need to bear in mind when you are traveling around Africa is it's not as easy as it seems.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I have traveled literally around the whole of the world. So much so that my cousin wants me to get into a competition with this other chick who claims she's been to all of the countries in the world and he's been counting, so he knows
On
I've
your
been
behalf,
to
like-
more. And he's like, "Flo, go and say something." I'm like, I'm really not interested. But I was encouraged to travel with my father, of course.
He's in the industry
He's
as
in
well.
the industry, and my grandma was in the industry before him, and he's always let me know that look, because
So
you're
you're very
black,
flighty.
I'm not a very solid person.
Okay.
So
Just
that's
checking. Look.
really good.
But it's
But-
like anyway, yeah.
She's a water
Spirit.
spirit.
Well,
I am.
So water moves
Mommy W.
and
I
goes.
tend to go with the flow.
Exactly.
See?
But
Flow.
aren't you-
Before you
shouldn't
could-
we be going with the
So we
flow
could
since
edit all of
you're-
it, right?
Are you shocked?
So Adam, I've always found it, and I'm going to ask for your opinion on this.
Okay.
Because I've always found it a lot easier. And I think it's because I'm a dual national, so I find it easier with 2 different passports. But I've always found it easier to get from one country to the next, whether it's in Europe or whether it's in Asia or even in the States, just going north or south. It's so much easier to navigate and so much more cost effective to navigate by air in those other countries. Not so much in Africa. What do you think?
No, completely. I completely agree, and I think that it's because I see that, and I know this is a culture shock. So sorry if I overgo into the development, and I think that it also has to do with our colonial past, right? Okay. And a lot of the routes that we have, and as you know, the aviation routes were to channel trade from Africa to Europe and to other parts of the West and other parts of the world. So it wasn't actually about Africans traveling within Africa or trading with each other. But this is part of what we're trying to change now. Okay. And I've just come from Accra Wezo, which is trying to say how do we actually develop within Africa travel, but within Africa trade as well. But so I definitely agree that it's much easier to navigate. Like even some places I have to go to from in Africa, it's easier to go out of Africa and then come back in, and it's bizarre. It's ridiculous.
Situation, someone was going to Cameroon, which is next door, and they went to Ethiopia first or something.
Yes,
Ethiopian Airlines flight is regular and direct and
reliable,
cost effective.
But those are the things we also need to change. Just in terms of saying that if we want to promote domestic tourism, like Funlola said, how do we ensure that we have the right policies? How do we ensure but we don't want to bring government, like we want to talk about just enjoing travel.
And just enjoying it, which is why I like what you said about just slow down.
Yeah, slow travel, because like what they call it, young guy, what's a mid-level income, and he just wants to explore, like, because it's a very daunting thing to a lot of people, like, oh, this costs a lot of money, because I mean they might be watching now like, because it's your job, you guys get to go like but
first of all, I'm grateful, so yes, thank you very much. It does encourage me to travel, like, but even without it, I would definitely get off my butt and I would leave the country. I would cross as many borders as possible, because for me that's where the excitement is. That's where the pleasure actually comes from, seeing a different scenery, seeing a different topography. Like I used to love Jos as a kid. My aunt used to live in Jos, and she had a monkey and a parrot, and they would just let us go outside, and outside wasn't a garden, it was a cliff. So it was things like that that really sparked my imagination. I can't ever imagine my nieces and nephews or having kids grow up and not knowing the type of country that we have here in Nigeria, or not knowing just what they have to the borders. For example, in Angola, they have these, it's called Calandula, where they have this waterfall that comes off black rock, and depending on the time of day, the rock either looks red or blue or black. And that's in Africa.
So like the real Wakanda.
Literally, like
the real Wakanda is literally just around the corner from us every single day, and I don't understand how a lot of the people don't know it. Ulumorok isn't a rock. It's just a stone.
Well, but it's
I'm about to be lambasted by everybody. I get why it is so significant, but I know that we have so many other pieces around the country that are just as powerful or even more so.
But I also think that it's different, like access is difficult and information is difficult, but we are hacking it now. And we're hacking it now. Like I think that there's this rise of tour organizers, tour operators, but I don't think that they're considering the whole health and safety, security aspect of things and the scope of it. But I also think that if people are really serious about travel, you have things like Nigeria Film Society, you have organizations like Encounter Ghana, you have places that nothing to do in Lagos that are already curating this for you. And all you need to do is sign up to their mailing lists, go, and everything is done. And so I love the fact that we're also hacking this for ourselves and making things realistic and understanding what we need, because like you said, middle income is true. You can't just expect everyone to jump up and spend hundreds of thousands of naira, or in some cases millions of naira.
Especially with like a local passport as well.
And some people would much rather pay rent than pay for a plane ticket. So
I think that's most people.
Look, I would live in my car if you told me that I could see the Northern Lights. So that's something I guess prioritized.
I always tell people that the reason I'm poor is because I spend all my money on travel.
So,
but it needs to be more cost effective.
But also I think that there's something about if you see travel as a value add, and I see it as adding a lot to who you are as a human being and your view of the world and how you navigate the world and how you interact with other people, and see it actually as
understand other people.
Exactly, and as a benefit that affects and influences your full-time job and your real job, then you don't see it as a cost. I
Exactly.
see that
You see it as a benefit, or actually as almost like a training ground.
I mean, everything costs money. So
Everything
like,
does
yeah,
cost
so
money,
it's
but
a
some
priority
people would
value.
prioritize
Yeah,
travel
so-
at the bottom rung after
like
rent,
car,
food, sleep,
food.
education, and so on and so
Yeah.
forth, and all of these other things.
And I
But
think-
traveling within Africa can be more affordable.
For
And I
sure.
think that with the digital revolution and the age in which we live in, and people say this all the time, especially people from Kenya and Middle Africa and West Africa, Central Africa.
Yeah, Central Africa.
Yeah.
Because Africans jumped in forms of technology. We didn't necessarily settle, or we skipped over laptop and desktop technology and went straight to mobile.
Oh,
So
right.
everything is mobile money, mobile communication, mobile apps. So everything these days has to be accessible via mobile. And if we make that travel information accessible via mobile, road maps, routes, security, safe places to stop, make that accessible via mobile so people can have live feeds as they're going along, we could literally change the way tourism is done in Africa and in West Africa.
And that's exactly what I think that we need to do, and those are the solutions we need to be coming up with in saying how can we use technology to hack and solve our problems. How do we not continue to copy and paste in terms of technology, but say what are the real issues here? But we have some organizations that are starting to do some things, but how do we also help them? And so because we travel, but I think we're talking about as practitioners. Even within the industry, we already see that there's not a lot of support just in terms of encouraging these businesses to kind of create these solutions that we need, that will benefit all of us in terms of how we access and understand travel.
There are some international programs like Amadeus, I'm not sure if you mentioned that.
Yes.
But what they do is they actually invest in travel tech startups specifically for developing regions. So if somebody has a travel tech startup and they're developing it especially for a country like Nigeria or West Africa, those are the sort of people that put money in order to open up tourism in these
That's
kind
good
of
to
regions. So
know.
it's very, very interesting. I was very excited when I found out. Now running around looking for all the travel tech startups that
I'll send them your way.
Thank you.
I will.
But it's amazing what we can actually do on this continent, because I'm genuinely surprised every day by what Nigerians come up with and what solutions they come up with. So if we put this travel and accessibility challenge to them, I'm sure that we can come up with several different
In fact,
solutions.
we're going to start a challenge. We're going to start an innovation challenge.
Okay.
It was one of my
Right now.
recommendations.
I'm on board, by the way.
Yes, exactly. Get the
Give us the
young.
idea.
Are you putting like my face on it? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just your smiling face.
That's my smiling face. Like, yeah, okay. Like,
No, honestly, because it's sometimes very easy for us to talk about the problems, but then it's also
solution
we
is
have
an
to
important thing, yeah.
also encourage the solutions to come out. And I think what makes travel easier in other parts of the world is the information, is the access to, understanding the whole cost. In Africa, sometimes you don't know the entire cost of what your travel is going to be because you just never
You
know.
don't know, you apply for a visa, you're like, hold on, why is there an extra fee and another extra fee? Do I need fast track? What's going on? People don't know.
Okay, so that the flow of information
Yeah.
definitely needs to be improved. That's
It
what
sure.
definitely needs to be
For
improved.
sure.
Okay, so now let's talk. Okay, so you guys you've enjoyed the privilege of traveling a lot, seeing the world, etc. So let's say this people then can afford to travel, but I mean like basically now it's about selection.
Yes.
Like I know, yes, we're trying to promote Africa, but there's rest of the world. So what things have you seen? Everybody's different, but what have you seen?
That's
what have you
not fair.
enjoyed? No, I know.
I was going to say, when you said the rest of,
I think that's a really unfair question to ask.
I know, because here's the thing. So
Yeah.
little things you might have seen, like because culture-wise.
Yes, yes.
So what, like, I went to Japan and this. You have to see this, and like another thing, like okay. All right, let me try and take it down like a different path.
No, wait,
Okay, so
No,
what-
please, we understand. What
I know, but another thing, I don't want to lose my train of thought. So when you travel, do you find that, like, thinking from like a culture shock perspective, like, are you more surprised by how different we are or how similar we actually are? Which do you think it is?
Okay, for me, it's how similar we are. And I think what struck me a lot in Japan, particularly because, so I have to say, Funlola has traveled more than all of us.
Like I said, she's
On this
flight.
yeah, she's flight, like flow flight.
She flows.
Yeah, she flows. But I think what struck me when I went to Japan, and because out of Japan, all we hear is about the technology technological advancement. We have anime, manga, etc. And going to Kyoto and just finding out how they really value their culture, their heritage. Their tagline is where heritage meets the future, or where history meets the future. And so it was just really, and I went to Arashiyama, the groves, and it was just really, it really took me back. And we stayed in so something I always tell people when they travel is try and live like a local. So I stayed in like an old Japanese tea house, and it was just, and we literally did the whole low-level Japanese living for like a week. And it was just amazing to me that, this country understands that technology and, development is important, but they also understand their anchoring of something. And just that, ability to just have a syncretic, historical, futuristic, it was mind-blowing. And then even when you go to Tokyo, like just outside Shibuya, like you literally see, like they have a temple, and it's powerful. So for me, that was something that really struck me, particularly because when you then bring it back to Africa, I'm sorry, I have to keep coming back.
That's the base. That is the foundation of.
You then realize that a lot of what anchors us, we're trying to disown. We try to see that it's primitive. It's distance ourselves from it.
So that when you said that, live like a local. So it's like something I know we do less and less of. Like and so for me, it's like if we're saying. So for travel, for my experience, it's just that appreciation of we can advance as far as we want, but we can also know where we're coming from and celebrate that and be proud of it. And I was reading, so I was reading like, you now have design houses like Issey Miyake, now owning some of the old houses and then developing the documentation of the history of how they make things, how they used to make slippers, and just celebrating that.
Back to the roots and the traditions of actually creating those textiles. And sorry to interrupt, but that's one of the things that as I travel around Africa more and more, and yes, we're bringing it back to Africa, because it's this continent that I'm most excited about, and they call it the dark continent. Not just because it's full of dark-skinned people, but also because it's the continent that has fewer of those development lights. And it's seen as a continent of opportunity, and that's why you have so many people that are coming into Africa to set up shop or doing reverse African tourism back into the continent, and you have a lot of brands that are doing things like that. But I get excited about Africa because one of the key things, I think all countries except one, I've seen this, is that we have not let go of our traditional weaving, our traditional cloths, and the very basis of our traditions. It was unfortunately Angola. It was very, very difficult to find somebody, and I had to go to the outskirts to find somebody that actually understood the stories behind the traditional cloth. It's because they've been occupied by so many different nationalities, the Portuguese, the British, and so on and so forth, and they've had to fight for their sense of nationality. That when they finally got it, they found that they had a new sense of direction and a new culture as opposed to what they historically had. And it was very sad to see that trickling away. But that's something that I'm very adamant doesn't happen in Nigeria. And even now, a lot of the textiles that we traditionally printed we're now importing. But to get onto the second topic of what you said, I think exactly the same way Adu does. It is fascinating to me to travel around the world and see how similar people are. Because especially in Asia, they have the same sense of
tradition, family,
that we have in Africa. And the strength with them is that they fall back, no matter how far they go with their technology, no matter how far they go with the advancement of their cities and so on and so forth, they always have those family values and that sense of tradition to fall back on as well, which I find very, very exciting. You see it in Latin America, you even see it in the Nordics, which I find very exciting as well.
I just want to say that even going to what Funlola said about just how similar we are, even in the most developed parts of Asia, it just also shows us that in Africa we need to think about what development means for us, and we need to see that it doesn't always have to follow like a Western linear path.
Have to emulate what we've seen as success, because our definition of success is always going to be different to theirs, because our value is always going to be a little bit different.
It's funny you guys went there, because I was just about to emulate Western brothers and sisters, and so think like, so who are you wearing? This is our red carpet, and when I say who are you wearing, I just mean because I see a lot of different accessories, so I want to know where they're from by that. So by who are you wearing, I mean which country or which city.
It's actually a really funny story. Let Adam tell it.
No, I think
I see there's a lot of stuff, like I see accessories and everything, like I think this is not G-Shock, but this is something like, this is America. This is like
you're trying.
So,
Yeah, I think I'm wearing Nigeria, so this is I don't know, can we say the brand? Okay, so this is Kiva Desua, so it's a Nigerian brand, and she makes nice slides, and they're comfortable and cool.
Lives on hair.
Yes, exactly. And then this is just COS, which is a brand that does minimalist / Japanese style clothing.
But is that local?
No, this is
straight out
this
of
is from
Japan.
Europe. No, this
Europe,
is not straight out of Japan, but
it's Japanese inspired
yes.
from Europe.
And this is from Oshogbo. So this is using Adefope to make more contemporary styles.
Like
and then this is from Tanzania.
Tanzania. Oh.
Yes. So yeah. So I really like how they make it.
So Europe, Asia,
everything. All join.
How about you, Shaka Khan?
I like the Shaka Khan. In fact, I claim it. Thank you very much. It's actually a really funny story. When I walked in, I saw Adam wearing.
Oh yeah, I didn't just claim. This is not my.
So I don't even care because it now belongs to me. So Adam got this in Japan from an actual authentic, full-on market stall. She went in.
She got it from a stall, so you stole it from her.
I have stolen it fair and square. Let it be heard now. This now
like was she looking at
me?
Like I'm not expecting.
It does. I'm telling the truth. So when people see me walking around, they're like, "Oh, you got that from Adam."
Why did you ask this question?
Like who are you wearing? I'm wearing Adam.
Adam. Thank you. Styled by Adam, by way of Far East Asia.
Absolutely.
No, but it's actually gorgeous. It's wrinkle free. It's very.
I know.
I love it. She's looking there going, I know. That's why I bought it.
This is Funlola's.
So this bracelet is actually from Tanzania, and it's from the same guy who made this. I made friends. I tend to go around.
Looks like a series of plate mats.
It is. So he actually showed me how he makes this. His brother does the bronze. They literally cut out the circle, family affair. They bevel around it, and then they tap into it to make the design. So I really like this, and I bought.
Nice. So
wow.
What? Christmas
so
presents
one
are
is
coming up.
one.
Thank you. I only have 3 sisters, so 2 sisters, so 3.
I'm the third. Oh, okay,
exactly.
Fourth.
So there
/ Lamide. Sorry, delete that.
No.
But,
You don't tell us what to do. Yeah. So.
No, go with that. I want to see where that ends.
Shit. Yeah. So in all your many travels, I mean,
Yes.
obviously you pick up new friends. I mean, you form friends for life. So I have to ask the question: are you guys going out there as good ambassadors of Nigeria, telling them why they need to come here, or you're not ready to do that?
what do you think?
Auntie, I'm not a thinking man. I ask questions. I know better. Like I shall not assume.
You should not assume.
Yes.
I'm gonna let Ada answer first.
No.
I definitely sell Africa. I definitely sell the West Africa sub-region.
Yes.
I think that I see West Africa as a destination, and I think that we need to sell our countries, and that if we don't sell it, who will? But I also see that I always tell people that don't come with roasting, don't come expecting this out of Africa. So don't come and expect Safari Africa, because some people still think that.
From
but
the
also
airport to the bush, have the experience, and
then
the greens get back. That was Africa.
Exactly. So I'm very careful to say that that's not Africa. Safaris are beautiful. I love them, but that's not the continent. But I'm also saying that don't come expecting everything to be smooth sailing. Come like when I was going to India. I feel like people always go to India. It's like nobody thinks India has issues, all of it. But India is actually tap. Don't do but you still go and experience it. So I kind of use that analogy, or say like if you're going to Brazil, if you somewhere that you think, okay, this is not London, this is not Denmark,
not the glamorous,
it's not the
developed
tourist
vibe.
But it has so much.
Create great adventure.
Exactly. And no, what I also find is that, and that's why I keep coming back to our culture and our heritage, is that when you then meet people coming from outside of Nigeria, or even other Nigerians that have been in the diaspora and come back, they're like, oh my goodness, wow. It's like, it's amazing. Like when you go to Oshogbo or Benin or anywhere, and you're just like, wow. And so wonder, and they're like, oh, because outside of Lagos is a lot. Outside of Lagos, you're like, oh, Nigerians
there's a whole other country out there. It's a beautiful country. Yeah.
It's so green,
so
it's
lush.
so lush, it's so vibrant, people are so friendly. How come you didn't tell me that? How come you didn't show me that? And I keep getting those kind of questions. She's right.
Okay. So
like even Cross River, like I want to move to Calabar.
I want to move to Taraba.
So we'll move.
I want to move, yes.
You want to move?
You can visit.
No, but so this is off your question, but what I think that we need to also celebrate is, so I'm traveling the conversation. It's coming back to this slow travel. Yeah. So the best travel experience that I have had in my life has been when I cycled from Bordeaux to Toulouse, literally on my bicycle with my clothes in my pannier, through the countryside. And I would hope that if we can hack that here and they use old canal routes and old railroads, if we can hack that here, because we have lush grounds, if we can do that and people can literally go for a weekend and just ride to Ibadan. We were doing 100 kilometers every day. But you don't have to, we'll stop for wine, stop for this. But for me, it was just really nice to appreciate a culture in a very slow, because sometimes, and yes, the travel industry is also fast-paced, and we also have issues with, people are saying air transportation, climate change, all of these things. And I'm not saying that we can't do that, but I'm saying, can we also add this appreciation of slow travel? But then there's a lot we need to solve around that. So
I actually think that on this continent we should go through slow travel before we get to air travel. And we're relying so much on air travel because of the lack of infrastructure that we have, and the lack of connectivity that we have. Ethiopian Airlines is doing very well connecting the East with the West, and they have the code shares and interline agreements, which mean that you can take one airline all the way across, even though you're on 3 different carriers. And I think that it's very important to be allowed to connect easily between East and West.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we haven't gone through the stages of development. We're going from nappies and trying to use walking sticks. But whereas other countries have. Even growing up in other countries, I first started taking long distance buses.
That's true.
And then the
trains
rail,
and
then really cheap tickets, jumping between Europe and then jumping across the Atlantic. I developed with the aviation industry in those countries, but in Africa we don't have the infrastructure that has allowed us to do
There's no
slow
option,
travel.
yeah.
So I think that if we utilize the technology that we have and we were able to work with organizations on either end of the continent to plot safe routes that people knew and actually recommend places to stay, whether it's hostels or homes, because we're very hospitable people. And if the families that were taking people in could see the revenue that this would actually bring into their villages or their countries or whatever it was through this safe, slow domestic travel, I think that that's a difference that Africa can then show the rest of the world about our levels of hospitality and our ways of travel.
Yes, and what tourism means to us.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is usually the part where I ask, so what do we think is the way forward? But clearly, as travelers, you guys have already taken that journey. Like you planned this ahead, and you're already taking that journey. I'm like, and I'm still, so I'm the one still on ground. Like exactly. So what's it? So I mean, so I'd like to thank you guys so much for coming. I mean, it's opened up a lot. Like now, I mean, I'm encouraged. I mean, to do more travel across Africa. I mean, my limited experience has taken me to Ghana, Kenya, Uganda.
You don't try now.
I tried. I mean, yes, that's
we're all hanging out in Uganda, by the way.
Yes.
Like 6 countries. So
yeah. So that's fine. So thanks so much. A lot has been shared. The world is out there. I mean, like there's Japan. We've spoken about Japan. We've spoken about Europe and all that. But Africa, I mean, it's right here. Make use of what is right there in front of you. It's hard.
It's right.
But you can see there's thoughts towards it. So what we really tried to do here is encourage expanding your horizons, embracing culture, and learning more. And I, the curious guy, will keep asking these questions and keep coming to you doing this for the culture. And I hope you keep coming back. See you next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Chinedu.
Nigeria
Thank you. This was very good.